What happens when comedy collides with cancel culture? When one sharp exchange on live radio snowballs into years of fallout, a near-deadly confrontation, and ultimately a debate that refuses to die even after one person passes away. This is not just another celebrity beef. This is the story of Katt Williams and Wanda Smith, two comedians whose paths crossed in the most explosive way possible. What began as jokes turned into a viral roast, a husband allegedly chasing Katt with a gun, a radio career cut short, and years later, the resurfacing of an old clip that the internet refuses to let go of. And in the middle of it all stands Katt Williams, a man who has made a career out of exposing hypocrisy in Hollywood, but now finds himself once again at the center of controversy, with Dave Chappelle stepping in to defend him and fans divided about whether Katt owes Wanda's family an apology. This story forces us to ask, is Katt the villain? Or is he the victim of a culture that thrives on tearing people apart? In late 2024, a clip from 6 years earlier started making the rounds again on social media. The footage, Katt Williams roasting Atlanta radio host Wanda Smith on her own morning show. At the time, it was hilarious to many. Katt's quick wit, his unfiltered responses, and the way he flipped Wanda's attempts at banter into brutal punchlines had audiences rolling. But with Wanda now gone, fans began looking at that same footage through a much darker lens. Suddenly, what was once seen as comedy gold was being labeled as bullying. Twitter threads accused Katt of humiliating Wanda so badly that she never recovered professionally. Some even claimed he had a hand in her downfall, with one viral post saying, "Katt Williams ruined Wanda's career that day. He owes her family an apology now that she's gone." But not everyone agreed. Another wave of fans pushed back, pointing out that Wanda wasn't some innocent bystander. She threw shade first, and Katt only did what comedians do best: clap back. This divide set the stage for a larger conversation about accountability, comedy, and the way old wounds resurface when people are no longer around to defend themselves. The resurfacing of Wanda's interview came at a sensitive time for Katt Williams. Just months earlier, he had shocked fans by apologizing to Michael Jackson's family for the jokes he made about the king of pop in his old stand-up routines. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Katt admitted that mocking MJ wasn't just his idea of comedy. It was something encouraged by the very industry that profited off him. He claimed Hollywood pushed him to tear down his own people, using his platform to make legends look like punchlines. He called it one of his biggest regrets. But the apology sparked a chain reaction he didn't expect. Fans began to scrutinize his entire career. If he was now admitting that making fun of Michael Jackson was wrong, then what about Wanda Smith? If he could apologize to a global superstar's family, shouldn't he also apologize to the family of a fellow comedian whose life and career allegedly spiraled after their exchange? This is when things got messy, because while Katt thought he was closing one chapter of his career with humility, he had unknowingly reopened another. The controversy could have swallowed Katt whole, but then Dave Chappelle, one of the few comedians with just as much cultural weight, stepped in. Chappelle defended Katt, reminding everyone that comedy has always been about pushing boundaries. Chappelle argued that if comedians are constantly forced to look over their shoulders and apologize for every joke, then comedy itself will cease to exist. He compared the backlash against Katt to the campaigns to cancel him over his trans jokes, and he made a point that resonated with many. Comedy is the last space where free thought exists, and taking that away sets a dangerous precedent. But while Chappelle's defense framed this as a battle over free speech, the truth is the Katt versus Wanda feud was never just about jokes. Behind the punchlines was a personal clash, and behind that clash was a moment that escalated far beyond words. A moment that could have ended in bloodshed. It all started in September 2018 on the Frank and Wanda morning show in Atlanta. At first, the interview was light. Katt was there with fellow comedian Red Grant to promote upcoming shows, but within minutes the tone shifted. Katt brought up Tiffany Haddish, who at the time had just scored a Netflix special and was the talk of Hollywood. He pointed out something few dared to say. Tiffany had never toured as a headliner, had never written a truly memorable joke, and yet was being elevated as the face of black comedy. It wasn't jealousy. It was Katt calling out what he saw as industry favoritism. But Wanda Smith wasn't having it. She jumped in to defend Tiffany, saying her rise was due to her authenticity and relatability. Katt smirked. For him, Wanda's response was exactly the kind of surface-level narrative Hollywood wanted people to believe, and he wasn't going to let it slide. What happened next would turn a friendly radio chat into one of the most infamous comedy clashes in recent memory. Katt didn't stop at criticizing Tiffany's career path. He pulled back the curtain on what he believed was the real reason behind her rise. According to him, Tiffany was chosen not because of raw comedic talent, but because she was a safe pick for white audiences. He argued that Hollywood had long ignored brilliant black female comedians, women like Lunel, Melanie Camarco, and Miss Laura, who had spent decades grinding without recognition. Yet Tiffany, who openly joked about dating white men and leaned into certain stereotypes, was suddenly being handed opportunities. For Katt, this wasn't personal beef with Tiffany. It was about systemic bias, colorism, and who gets chosen to represent black comedy. But for Wanda, it was too much. She pushed back harder, shifting the spotlight away from Tiffany and turning it directly on Katt. As Katt dissected the politics of Hollywood, Wanda tried to flip the script. She asked Katt if he cooked for his kids, clearly trying to throw him off balance. When that didn't land, she poked at his hair, mocked his past legal issues, and even implied that his time in jail defined him. For Katt, this was the ultimate betrayal. Before the cameras started rolling, Wanda had allegedly promised not to bring up his kids or his legal past. Now here she was doing exactly that. To Katt, it wasn't just disrespect, it was an ambush. And if there's one thing Katt Williams has never done, it's back down from a fight. His response was swift, sharp, and brutal. When Wanda tried to recover by bragging about her cooking, the stage was set for one of the most infamous roasts in radio history. She proudly told Katt that her children loved her baked chicken and broccoli. Katt didn't miss a beat. "Look it up on your phone," he said. "See what it takes to make broccoli. Heat up water. That's all it says." The studio erupted. Wanda tried to laugh it off, but her expression betrayed her embarrassment. In that moment, the power shifted completely. Katt was in control, and Wanda's credibility as a host was in shambles. The broccoli line became internet legend, shared across social media as proof of Katt's unmatched wit. But for Wanda, the humiliation was real, and the consequences wouldn't end there. Just days later, the fallout left the radio station and spilled into the streets. Katt was performing at the Atlanta Comedy Theater when Wanda's husband allegedly confronted him in the parking lot. What happened next was caught on security cameras. Wanda standing by the door, Katt nearby, and her husband chasing him with a gun in hand. Katt would later describe it as one of the scariest moments of his life. "They tried to kill me," he said. "Not with jokes, but with a real gun in my real face on real camera." TMZ released the footage, confirming the chaos. Wanda and her husband insisted it wasn't as bad as it looked. He claimed he never pointed the gun, only dropped it. But to Katt, there was no denying it. The roast had escalated into a life-or-death situation. In January 2019, just months after the viral roast, Wanda Smith was quietly let go from V103 Atlanta. No official reason was given, but speculation ran wild. Many linked her firing to the controversy with Katt. Some pointed to her use of Lil Mama and perceived homophobic undertones during the roast. In a city with a large and influential LGBTQ+ community, those comments likely didn't go unnoticed. For Wanda, it was a devastating blow. A decades-long career in Atlanta radio ended abruptly. For Katt, the incident became just another chapter in his long list of controversies. But while he moved on, Wanda struggled to rebuild. For years, Katt stayed quiet about what really happened. But in 2024, during an interview on Club Shay Shay, he finally broke his silence. He claimed the entire interview was a setup. Wanda had promised not to go after his kids or his legal record, but she went back on her word the moment the cameras were rolling. He also accused her of trying to humiliate him in front of her largely gay fan base. And he believed that was the real reason she ended up losing her job. Katt also revisited the parking lot incident, saying he genuinely believed Wanda and her husband wanted to end his life over a joke. To him, it wasn't just an overreaction. It was a calculated attempt to silence him permanently. Then, in October 2024, Wanda Smith passed away unexpectedly, just one day after her 58th birthday. Atlanta's entertainment community mourned, with tributes pouring in from colleagues and fans who remembered her as a warm voice on the radio. But Katt Williams remained silent. No tribute, no condolence message, nothing. Some praised his restraint, arguing that anything he said would have been twisted against him. Others called his silence cold and disrespectful, and just like that, the feud reignited, even though one half of it was no longer alive. Now the question lingers. Does Katt Williams owe Wanda's family an apology, or has cancel culture gone too far by trying to rewrite history? Katt sees himself as the victim, a comedian targeted for doing his job, someone who nearly lost his life for telling jokes. Dave Chappelle sees him as proof that comedy itself is under attack, that society is too quick to cancel and too slow to understand the role of humor. But for Wanda's supporters, this isn't about free speech. It's about accountability, empathy, and the human cost of going too far. So what's the truth? Was Katt Williams guilty of destroying Wanda Smith's legacy? Or was he simply another comedian caught in the crossfire of a culture that builds people up only to tear them down?